what we'll be looking at in this session is this will span into multiple sessions today and next class. What we'll be looking at is how do we create various database objects in Netezza. To start with, the first one we have is the most important one, a database. How do we create a database? Like I was talking yesterday, Netezza is different from Oracle at a hierarchy itself, but it's more looks like a SQL Server or a DB2 or an Informix, where we have a single instance. But other OLTP systems we can have multiple instances though. But here you can have only one instance of Netezza running. On this we can create n number of databases. Since we can create n number of databases, we need a separate place where we can store information about all those n number of databases, their properties and all that information. That database is a system database. Probably if I go to Oracle database, it's like a system table space, right? Along with the system database, Netezza also has something called master_db. This guy helps to create the new databases pretty faster. Right, let me show you that once. Right. So when I say ngSQL, when I say \l, I see list of databases here, out of which I am seeing a system. Now when I run the \l, it's going to get the database from, information from _v underscore database. However, this view was built on top of _t underscore database. The same concept like in Oracle or other databases where we have system views. System views are built on top of system tables. It's highly recommended to use only system views, not system tables, because the column structure can change anytime on the tables. Till I think somewhere like 7.0.3, Netezza used to show master_db under the output of \l, but they are not showing it right now because it makes no sense to have them. Just to display something, some kind of a database which we never use. So when I say select, so here I can see master_db. All these databases, not just database, anything we create in Netezza has its own object ID. It's the same thing with Netezza too. It's the same thing with Netezza too. So the important point is system has an object ID of 1, master_db has an object ID of 2, and all the user databases we create have an object ID of 6 digits. Now why I brought this concept of object IDs is to to show you where do we store these databases physically. Like I covered in the previous sessions, we have two different storage places, right? What if I go back to the twin architecture we looked at? It's in fact the similar architectures in Striper or Mako. We have a storage on the top, right? Then we have host. At the bottom we have blade servers, right? So this is the place where we store all our tables or databases data. User data gets stored here. However, metadata gets stored on host. We also have on a host some file systems, right? When I log into host, for example, ngdev1a or ngprod1a, whichever is it. When I log into host, when I say df-k, that's what I see it here. I have file systems here too. So whenever I create any object, the metadata gets stored on host. So this is a very important point. Metadata gets stored on host, whereas the actual data gets stored on disks or data slices on the top. This is a key for understanding Netezza storage. What do I mean by metadata? For example, create table syntax. Whenever you run a create table or create materialized view, create database, all these create or alters, the structure itself gets stored at host. But actual data gets stored on disks or data slices on the top. That information, how much storage you have, you can see using NGHW. We'll get used to it, okay? We'll get used to it. The point I want to show right now is where these databases metadata gets stored on host. Where these databases or objects metadata gets stored on host. I said this point, that's very good, right? The saying that metadata is stored on host, but where on host? That's an important point to look at too. Now all this data gets stored under ng database directory. You remember yesterday we talked about, in a previous class we talked about the replication only happens on export home and ng, because these are the only directories that change frequently with user interaction. So in that, export home is just like a home directory. I mean, no? When I say cd/nz, inside it I'll talk about in a separate session what are all the important directories. There are two important directories, data and kit. Kit has all your executables. Data has all your metadata. Inside it you have again important directories, out of which base is a directory where you have all the metadata. Here inside base you have various directories with D as a starting letter, means directory, right? One is system, two is metadata. Then you have bunch of directories. So if I go to one, I see list of all the system objects, cd1. Again I have, here I have only bunch of files which are in a binary format. These are the guys that hold entire your system metadata, right? If I go to here, so similarly, let's say if I go ahead and create a new database now, ng and ng is the password. If I create database testdb2, now what happens in the backend is when I create a database testdb2, all the necessary structures and basic stuff for this database are copied from master_db, right? That's why we call that as a template database. When I say select object ID and database from _v_database, 219993. When I run this now, ls-l, you see the directory. There is no such directory here, but you see that here. When I log in here, you see bunch of files. Now all these are copied from directory 2. So this is just a basic metadata structures where you can see all that information once you connect to testdb2 using \c option. It's taking a long time. \d capital S V display system views. You see bunch of system views associated here. All this information is stored in this but I don't know where internally and all that information, but because this is all a binary format, I cannot go beyond this in understanding, but somewhere it gets stored here, right? So whenever I create a table or the existing views or tables information, all this is somewhere here. Srinivasa, you are there? Just give me, yeah, okay. So I'm worried that since there is no sound from your side, okay, that's good, you're following it, right? Okay, so coming to the database, we have a two default databases, system and master_db. However, in latest releases, they are giving a template database called test1 database. In Netezza world, we also call database as a catalog. We also call database as a, excuse me. Sometimes we also refer database as a catalog. Right. We were discussing the other day how these guys evolved over here, right? For example, let me write that one more time here. From branding point of view, right? Mustang was the old one, TwinFin was the stable one, then they got Striper, latest one Mac, and the hardware model from software point of view, they have 4.x, they have 7.0, then they got 7.1, 7.2. Here they also have 7.0.1, 7.0.2, 7.0.3 before they went into actually 7.1. Obviously, it's quite true, right? Whenever I go from one version to other version, there has to be some additions. There will be some fixes or new features. One major thing that happened from version 4 to version 6 when they migrated, when you migrate from Mustang to TwinFin was there's a concept called zone maps added, right? And after the zone maps, it was a very important feature for performance. After the zone maps, one more important thing that came, especially in a 7.0.3 is multiple schema support. Before 7.0.3, we used to have one user has one schema. One user is equal to one schema. But from 7.0.3 onwards, one user can have multiple schemas. But this is an optional feature, right? By default, you don't get that. If you want to get this feature enabled, you have to enable a parameter called enable schema DBO check. You have to enable this parameter in this ngdata PostgreSQL configuration file. There will be a dot configuration file that dictates your ngSQL environment, right? If you go to /ng, inside it two important directories, one is data, another one is Git. You go to data, there is a configuration file called PostgreSQL. You might be wondering on Netezza why we are having Postgres here. Postgres is itself, if you know, an open source database. Like I said in one of the points, Netezza did not do anything from scratch. They took even database from PostgreSQL. If you look at these backslash commands and all these are from PostgreSQL environment, if I am not wrong. So they have the basic database code as PostgreSQL. They just implemented few changes. I mean the massive changes, of course, to support Netezza AMPP architecture. So, but that's why I think they kept the name still as it is. If you open PostgreSQL.configuration file, so there are a bunch of configuration parameters here. The default port number, right? If you want to change the port number, come here and modify various parameters. All are commented because these are all defaults. If you want to change enable DBO, enable schema DBO check, you have to uncomment it here, right? And you have to modify it to one, and you have to write and quit. When I say grep DBO PostgreSQL configuration, it is 1. Okay. But what I have to do is, for any of the changes I make in this configuration file to take effect, I have to bounce my instance. ngstop and ngstart. How do I bounce my instance? I say ngstop, then ngstart. Or I say ng system restart. I'm not doing it because, in the past I had many times trouble this coming back online. But it comes online, but it won't come online in the stipulated time in our class. So I'm not doing this change right now, but you can try, right? But there are three important values that this parameter takes. By default, it is 0, means single schema. I can give value as 1 or I can give value as 2, right? 2 is the industry standard, but 1 also sometimes people give. Now let me explain you the difference between these two. So before that, let me log in here, ngSQL. Connect to test into display tables. If I just say create table, T1, column 1 character of 40, insert into T1 values from testdb to database. Now whenever I create a database, so I have to specify who is the owner, right? That means by default, whoever is creating the database will be the owner, no doubt. So that's why when I say \L, the owner of testdb to database is admin user. Now whenever I create a database, whenever I create a new database, I get three default schemas. One is information underscore schema, definition underscore schema, and the third one is username. The username here is admin schema. Admin is a user. Admin is a database user who created testdb2 database. So in our testdb2 case, I got the above three schemas by default. So if you look at here, that's what we are looking at here, admin schema. When I display tables, this T1 table is under admin schema. Probably for you guys coming from Oracle, you can simply think it as a user admin, right? Now, when I connect to some other database, when I say select start from testdb2.admin.t1, this is how we refer cross database objects. This is how we refer cross database objects. I'm in a system database, but I'm trying to access objects from testdb2. You don't need a DB link here because all are under same instance. All you need to do is database name dot schema name dot t1, right? Instead of that, sometimes you can ignore schema name. Sometimes you can ignore schema name. You see, it's a three-part name: database name, schema name, table name. Database name dot, I can ignore schema name dot t1. Now when I ignore this syntax is also allowed. This created a lot of confusion after 7.0.3. When I ignore this schema name here, by default Netezza substitute here default schema name. Now this will get converted into select start from testdb2 dot admin dot t1, right? Right. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. Now, but what happens when I choose this enable schema dbo check 0 no multiple schema support, huh? When I say 1 multiple schema support with warning, 2 multiple schema support with error, right? Now here I am in a admin user, right? 1 second, let me formulate that example. So what is the scenario that I get warning here? You see what is happening? No, but I should be getting an error.
We do not have schema names, right? Like in the test too, the V and the ASDF, we do not have schema
Yeah,
names,
that's
right?
what I was wondering. Hold on a second. I think I don't have to, because I have enabled it here as let me modify this to 2. Yeah, this is what happens. I don't remember if I modified that to 1 in the past, but why it's behaving even 0. Right, here is the thing. Right now the value is 0. Whenever I change it to 1 or a 2, right? When I say 0, when I am trying to say select start from testdb2 dot admin dot t1, I'm getting the output from admin because the t1 table only exists in admin. However, when I say select start from testdb2 dot t1, it's even going and getting that from admin because admin is a default schema for this database. Till here we are clear, right?
Yeah.
However, when I say select start from testdb2 dot some unknown schema name, for example, let's say if I show you that backslash du, right, when I say select start from testdb2 dot srini dot t1, since this schema does not exist, it will replace this schema with a default schema. It will replace this schema with a default schema. So this created a lot of confusion, right? But it not even throwing any error or a warning. It is showing you the output. So this needs to be very careful. But when I put this as a 1, right? When I put this as a 1, it throws a warning saying that there is no schema as Srini1 and I'm switching back to admin. At least some kind of information it throws. Whereas when I have this as a 2, it will error out. It won't show you the out because it error out saying that there is no schema as Srini. I'm erroring out. You see the three differences? When it has a 0, it only always thinks that the schema is a default admin. Doesn't matter whatever you put it here. Default is the database owner or whatever the user you substitute here. The user does not exist, it converts to default database user. But it's the same thing even when you have 1, but it just shows you a warning. That's something you can do it as a practice by changing its default parameter and bouncing the instance. But if you don't want to proceed further because this created a lot of confusion, especially after multiple schema support, you can enable that parameter to true and bounce the instance. Then whenever you are referring a wrong schema, it will error out immediately. Now just keep this example in your notes, right? So once you have the environments, modify that parameter to 2 and 1 and 0 and see this example. So
Sure.
this is major responsibility of a developer to making sure that what is the right schema, whether we are referring all that. But for DBA, it's our responsibility to enable or disable it because it requires downtime. You need to stop and start. But if you have to enable it, this is a place to go. You will get a warning if a query references an invalid schema, but you still move to admin. Now, how do I create a database? We already looked at it. Create database, right? If you want to change any character set and collation sequences. So, do you want to collect history? History is for auditing purpose. This we'll talk about in query history and audit collection class. Replication, I'll just cover it at very high level because I don't have a replication box to show this how the replication setup is done. So here I'm creating a create database training DB. This is taken on an old environment. That's why you see this database name in brackets username. This was very old slides like 7.0 before the multiple schema support. Nothing's changed. Only that you see a display system dot something like this. That's how you see this. If I want to connect to a training database /C training database, ideally I pass here user ID and password. If I'm not giving any user ID and password, by default it takes the current connected user ID and password. So then I am explaining you what are the two different locations where we store databases data. Metadata is on host disks. Actual data is on SPU or SPLite disks on the top. So here is a query to find out object ID. 1, 2 like this. So then the same information you can find it using ng-stats command. We'll talk more about this in statistics class. When I say ng-stats, it will quickly show me what kind of an environment I'm working on. So if someone put me in a awkward situation such as, okay Ravi, this is the box you have to manage from today, right? So once I log in, the first command I run is this one, ng-stats. It will quickly tell me what kind of a system I'm working on, right? That's the first important thing to know, right? It's as equivalent as uname -a. How important is that command? Tells you quickly at what kind of a system, what kind of a processor, 32-bit or 64-bit, what is the host name, right? All that information. So if I say if config Netezza, so so this gives me a quick information about what kind of system, how many racks I have, number of spas, number of spools, how long system is online, right? So all that information it tells me, right? It generally it pulls this information, part of this information from under data. There is a directory called config. Inside config there is a directory called call home. This is another important directory to keep up to date with it. This call home directory has information that who are the primary contacts in your company for Netezza box, right? Who are your primary contacts? This is another thing I will look at it. So generally your director or client project manager, a couple of contacts will be here. Now this is the same file. Netezza monitoring system has a capacity to attach it in an email system and send it to IBM support or whoever is monitoring your Netezza box. IBM Netezza says that we can monitor your Netezza boxes, right? But at this cost also. That's not free, right? However, however, you know, when you are monitoring it, right, all of a sudden, like you are a new guy, or let's say if I'm sitting in IBM side, when I'm receiving a system down issue from some company called XYG, I need to immediately contact someone, right? Whom should I contact, right? This is that information. This is that information. What are the four numbers and that what kind of a system that is, all that information we need to keep here up to date, right? Two important files. Under config we have one, and the other one like we discussed, ng-stats. Now it gives me like what kind of a database object IDs we have. So here is a quick description if you can take a look at it and read it. The identifier names. Database name is one kind of an identifier name, can take maximum 128 bytes, just like 128 English characters. Any user who is the owner of a database automatically has full privileges. It's expected. Similarly, for systems that support multiple schemas in a database, the schema owner automatically has full privileges. Let me show you one example on how to create a new schema. Right. So whenever I create schema, the information is stored in a table called schema TA. When I say select star from schema TA, right now I see only three schemas. Under database test DB2, like I said, information and definition, these hold system views and tables. Admin is a default schema because admin is a default user who created the database. If Srini created the database test DB2, then Srini's name will be here. Now when I say select current user, when I create schema, for example, if I say schema 2, so the syntax to create a schema is create \h create schema. However, I am not allowed to create here because my parameter is 0. So if I want schema 2, I have to go ahead and create schema 2 as a user, like a standard OLTP systems, such as Oracle. However, if I enable this parameter with the help of my DBA, I can create a new schema 2. That I have this example as an exercise, I believe. I will also share these exercises. Multi-schema support and bouncing the integer. So this I will share with you once the class is complete today. So this anyway talks about so what is the exercise objectives. So how do you do this parameter change? This all talks about it. And quickly one example. When I create a table T1, how do you refer that? Schema1.T1 and schema2.T1 I can have it. So you can practice this example to get best hold on these multiple schemas. So, anyway, I'll send that exercise after the class. The important point here is to switch between the databases. I'm saying that \c testdb1 or \c system. Also, I can say set catalog system. \c I can use, or I can simply say set catalog. Like I said, catalog is nothing but database. Set catalog database. See what I'm saying? Both are equal commands. We can use interchangeably. But there is a little difference from temporary tables point of view. When I say ACT, it will show me list of active connections I have. right? This is my current session, 17478 session ID. But when I say \c and I connect to testdb2, when I say ACT, my current session will get disconnected and I will get a new connection here. Hold on a second, I forgot. When I say set catalog testdb1, right, I'm right. \c disconnects the current session ID and creates a new session. But whereas when I do a command called set catalog to switch between the databases, my current session ID is preserved. There are advantages of it. If I have a temporary table created, you know, right, temporary table association is only for a session. The moment you close the session, they are gone. For example, here I create temporary table temp1 as column 1 integer. Let's say character of 50. Insert into temp1 values. I am temp from testdb1 database. Now the moment I say set catalog, you see the feedback here. Insert statement is successful, one row inserted. 0 is just some code you can ignore. When I set catalog system, when I say select start from testdb1.admin.temp1, I can still see the data because the same session ID is preserved. Whether I am in system database or testdb1 database, the temp1 table still exists. However, if I switch to some other database called testdb2 now, and when I'm trying to run the same command, the temp tables are gone because I switched using \c between databases. So my current session will terminate and it will open a new session. Right. So something to remember. Okay. Similarly, you can say set schema to switch between schemas. If you run a command called select current schema, when you say select current catalog, you say select current user, right? So you can also switch between schemas using set schema like you are switching for databases. Right. You can practice this in that example, exercise number 3. Right. Just give me 1 second. I have another class now. Okay. Information and definition schema. Right. Now there are various tools we use to play on these Netezza databases. ngSQL, like we are doing. There's a tool called Netezza Performance Portal, and there's a tool called ngAdmin. The web admin interface was deprecated and moved to NPP, Netezza Performance Portal. And we use various data connectivity applications like ODBC, GDBC, and OLEDB. One tool we use is Agility Workbench for Netezza. Right.
Praveen, what is that OLEDB?
Oh, this is kind of a driver, man. Driver for Windows applications. You have various drivers, right? ODBC or JDBC. JDBC for Java applications, ODBC for open database applications, OLEDB for mostly for Microsoft .NET and VB, these kind of
Yeah.
applications. If you talk to database, use it.
Oh,
Now, what I'll be doing is after the class, when I get some time, I will send you the locations where you can download the software so that we can go ahead and set up this client. These are the various client. NGSQL is one client tool we are using so far, but NGSQL is not GUI. So I'll send you links where to download this GUI stuff so that we can do the setup in next class.